Good morning and welcome to Rising. We've got another terrific show for you today, absolutely top-notch, and I'm excited to start reading it. Let's get going. So first of all, former President Trump's legal troubles are back after several lengthy delays took place. We're just 10 weeks out from the election, and prosecutors in Special Counsel Jack Smith's office filed a superseding indictment Tuesday against Trump over his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. Now, the new indictment narrows the allegations so that they're in line with the Supreme Court's recent opinion on presidential immunity. Specifically, the new indictment removes a previous section that had accused Trump of trying to use law enforcement powers of the Justice Department to correct his loss. Now, Trump reacted on Truth Social, writing, quote, "This ridiculous political hoax, which most thought was already won by me, comes right out of the White House and DOJ and is being pushed by Kamala Harris and crooked Joe Biden against their political opponent, me. Like all the other witch hunt cases, it is being mocked by legal scholars and experts as gross election interference." That is not all. On Monday, the special counsel urged a federal appeals court to reverse Judge Cannon's ruling last month that dismissed Trump's mishandling of classified documents. Special counsel Jack Smith also said Judge Cannon was mistaken in ruling that Smith was unlawfully appointed by Attorney General Merrick Garland. Trump's lawyers have 30 days to reply to Smith's brief.
And the key here is that neither of these cases will go to trial before Election Day. And if Trump wins the election, he'll be able to kill both of these proceedings, which I wouldn't put it past him to do. But I love the way he writes a Truth Social post, Robbie. The same way we studied Shakespeare, we're going to study Trump tweets and truths. The way random words are capitalized and others are lowercase, it all means something, doesn't it?
It takes a special kind of talent to know which words to capitalize and underline, to write like in that emphatic way. I absolutely agree with you that we'll study it for generations to come. But as to the underlying, news story, look, the hope, I think naive hope that many Democrats and progressives had that they would be able to win this election by imprisoning Trump first was never going to pan out. These proceedings are not going to wrap up by the time of the election, not even close. If you want to defeat Trump, you have to defeat him in the ballot box. You can't defeat him through some legal, in my view, semi-dubious proceeding. So the indictment is going forward with the limited by the Supreme Court because you can't, according to the Supreme Court decision, some of his actions fall in his official capacity, and he has immunity from those. The Supreme Court did not explain which of his actions received that protection, so it was still kind of creatively left to Jack Smith to decide, well, maybe that's more plausibly an official action, maybe that's not, so here's what we're charging him with, here's what we're not, and so on. So that's the position they're in, so they get to respond to that. And of course, Jack Smith's entire appointment has been deemed by one judge to have been not lawful, that appointment. So we'll see if ultimately a higher court agrees there. But I think the bottom line, again, is just that there's nothing, if you want to beat Trump, you have to beat him fair and square in the election. Holding out some hope for divine legal intervention was never a good strategy.
Right. Yeah. I think determining what is an official act and what is not is a task that the Supreme Court has essentially set itself up to hear another case on, because I can imagine a world where a prosecutor argues quite convincingly that when Donald Trump was in the White House and throwing chicken nuggets against the wall during the election, that he was not serving as president, that he had clocked out for the day or something to that effect. So what counts as an official act and what doesn't? What did he do as President Trump, and what did he do, as a friend of folks in Georgia? I think all of these things are going to be fleshed out in court. Very interesting that potentially after Election Day, if he wins, he could stop these trials from ever happening. That's a bit scary, but there's so much evidence for them to review. I just think that charges around this could have come shortly after the January 6th Select Committee wrapped up their proceedings. How long ago was that? Like 2 years ago at this point. And so I just really feel like the delay here was almost intentional. And I think that there are people in our justice system that have made some calculation as to what this effect will be on this election and on the American people if Trump is prosecuted. And this is the message he's putting out, is that this is all a hoax. It's a political prosecution. I think they're afraid of civil unrest, whether justified or not.
Well, if there was a deliberate delay on the part of the justice system to delay the charging of Trump, I think that was probably designed to, and I'm not saying that was the case, but if it was the case, perhaps it was designed to interfere with his ability to engage in campaigning, which I think has been the most devastating aspect of these prosecutions, is that he needs to be out there giving rallies, which he's doing, giving rallies. He was almost assassinated at one, but he needs to be out there talking to the people in the swing states. And if he's, trapped in a courtroom in New York or D.C. or Georgia or wherever it is, then that's his time is being directed towards staying out of prison. Well, that is a strain on the campaign, his ability to campaign, which of course he is calling a form of election interference. So I think that's probably the most negative aspect of the prosecutions for him, is that they've kept him, they have somewhat hampered his ability to campaign. He's still doing it, but he needs to do even more of it.
It's not as bad though, Robbie, as if he was already in prison. That might be a little harder.
Then that would really interrupt his ability to campaign. Although can you imagine if the deep state put Donald Trump in jail, and he has to run the whole campaign from prison? I mean, that would make the argument would make itself for what he is arguing he should be reelected to do, to dismantle the deep state, to prevent the weaponization of the federal government. He's like, look what they have done. They have imprisoned me for defending you. That would be his pitch to the American people, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. If we didn't have this fiasco around whether or not Smith could have been appointed, I think things would have gone a little bit smoother. There have been, several hiccups in the prosecutorial process here with Donald Trump. And so I think also the Stormy Daniels trial happening made this, which is about a very recent thing, what happened on January 6th of 2021, it made it seem like it's a slew of cases that are political prosecution. But Donald Trump is the main source of information on Donald Trump's cases for a lot of these things. And he's not likely to give the prosecution side of things and say, well, yeah, I was, saying slanderous things about this woman who made accusations against me that the court actually found were true. And actually, I admitted to, but it's fine. I shouldn't have been prosecuted. In the same breath, he'll admit to doing the crime and also say it's wrong that he's being prosecuted for it. And his supporters believe him. And so will it have an effect on the election? No. But is there some standard of holding people even in power accountable here that people will lose faith in our justice system if that's not done? I think that's the motivating factor for continuing on with these cases, even though people know he's a widely popular political figure. He very well could be the next president. I think he's afraid of Kamala Harris right now, and he's not doing a great job with his campaign. But there's a lot of time until November still. And I think he could turn this around. And I don't see the cases, affecting him as much. But I'm scared of a scenario where he does win the election and he's never found convicted of these crimes. I think that would be a failure of our justice system altogether. I would lose a lot of faith in our government, in our democracy, if that were the case. And I hope it's not. I hope he loses, and I hope he's prosecuted. And listen, maybe a grand jury or a judge finds him completely innocent, but I think, he needs to stay in court.
Well, that's fine. I don't think the process should, he's being accused of serious crimes, and the process needs to work itself out. I don't, whether he's found innocent or guilty, I'm not going to be a member of the jury. That's up for judges and juries to decide. Certainly he should be no less accountable for his actions than any other political figure, although I do worry that the process has been construed in a way to make it more difficult for him to run for his election, that some of these stakes should be decided not even by a judge and jury, but by voters, whether they want this person to be the president again, and that part of this effort was at depriving voters of that opportunity and instead shifting it to the legal system, where there is a higher likelihood of a conviction, because when you're up against the legal system, prosecutors have a ton of power to rig the system against defendants. That's something that supporters of criminal justice reform, take Trump off the menu. Supporters of criminal justice reform know that the legal system is very unfair to defendants. The prosecutors have a lot of power to bring a variety of different charges based on a small number of actions, and to make the person seem guilty. But obviously, he should face the accountability of the system. I don't think he should be immune from prosecution. I wouldn't want anyone, having the most powerful job in the world, to be totally shielded based on their actions. I think that would create very perverse incentives. So we will have to see. More Rising right after this.